What do we do with leftover oatmeal?
Welcome to Ridgehaven Homestead. From the mountains of Upper East Tennessee, we share snippets of our off-grid life, cabin build, and garden blessings. Pour yourself a cup of tea, sit back, and take a peek into our off-grid home and family.
It seems like no matter how hard I try to plan, I always end up with leftover oatmeal. I don't know if it's because I'm thinking that my family eats more than they do, or if they've stopped eating as much as they used to. I suspect it's the latter because we've always made a healthy amount, and now it just seems like almost every day I'm putting oatmeal away and I end up with some in the pan left over. While we don't eat oatmeal every day, we do eat it a couple times a week, and so it seems like almost every week I'm stacking up containers in my fridge of leftover oatmeal. So that brings up the question, what do we do with leftover oatmeal? We don't want to be just tossing out food, and if we want to be using our money in the best way possible, we don't want to waste. So what do we do? Well, I've come up with 5 good uses, frugal uses for leftover oatmeal that I think you'll find useful. Some of these are taken out of the pages of wartime and times around the Great Depression when people simply could not afford to waste food. And I think that we need to be more like them and learn from their lived experiences so that we are not wasting food ourselves. So oatmeal can be a handy thing. It's a high fiber, whole food, plant-based food, but if you're like most people, the appeal of cold oatmeal doesn't seem as appetizing as it was when you had it cooked originally. That said, the easiest and the first way to use up leftover oatmeal is simply to store it and then add it to our pan, add a little bit of milk, and use it the next day or a subsequent day when your family is not tired of it. You can jazz it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be the same boring chunk of cold oatmeal. You can add raisins or cinnamon or other spices that you like. You can add other flavorings like vanilla, coconut, anything like that. You can even make it into chocolate or carob oatmeal. That is a delicious alternative. So there's lots of ways you can jazz up leftover oatmeal, or you can simply put it in your pan, add a little water, and smash it. You can use your smasher to smash it, to break it up and get it easier to heat, because usually it does end up in a pretty big chunk. And so that's the easiest way to use up your leftover oatmeal, is just by recycling it the next day or two. Well, but some people want to go a little bit beyond that. If your family is like mine, they slightly resist that leftover oatmeal just cooked normally like that. They would prefer that I am a little bit more creative with my approach, because, you know, let's face it, leftover oatmeal looks like leftover oatmeal. One easy alternative to do with our leftover oatmeal is to simply combine it with whatever we have. Like, for instance, today I would take my leftover oatmeal from now, take my container, take my other container, I would put them in a bowl, smash it all up together, add raisins, coconut milk, or any other kind of non-dairy or dairy milk that you choose. And I would add some type of sweetener like honey or maple syrup, a little bit of stevia, add some vanilla or chopped apple, any kind of fruit like that, apples, pears, even blueberries. Blueberry and coconut is a great way. And then I would put that into a greased loaf pan or 9x13 pan or whatever kind of souffle pan that I had, and I would store that in the refrigerator overnight and let all those flavors come together. And in the morning or even through the night on a really low oven, I would bake it. And so you can make like a slow cooked baked oatmeal, which is way different than eating leftover oatmeal. Now there's 2 different ways you can do it. You can add a substantial amount of milk so that it's kind of like a rice pudding and make it into that texture so it's more like a porridge, and it'll have like a crust on top, but it will be still like a porridge. Or you can make it into something that you cut into squares and resembles more of a dense oatmeal cake type type dish. So there's two different ways to make baked oatmeal, which both are satisfying, and so kind of switch them up. Make it interesting for your family because everybody gets tired of things. So the baked oatmeal, the only caveat with that one is that you actually have to plan ahead. You have to plan the day before to mix it up, store it in your fridge, or bake it slowly through the night. So planning ahead is not, if that's not your forte, then you're gonna have to like force yourself to plan ahead so that you can have that for the next morning so that it's ready to go. You might have to wake up a little bit early to start it up, or set your timer on your oven if you have one. Okay, another great way, the third great way that I find sometimes that I do with my leftover oatmeal is I sneak it in small amounts into baked goods. I have snuck it into muffins, pancakes, waffles, and things like that. I just adjust the amount of other wet ingredients that I have and add that oatmeal and make sure I smash it up and mix it really well. It actually works really well as a binder, like in muffins or in waffles. It works really well. You just add maybe a cup or so depending on how much your recipe is making, and I find that it adds some moisture and it makes the texture pretty nice. So yeah, sneak it into muffins. Your family will probably never even know. Okay, another frugal way that our great grandmothers might have used leftover oatmeal was sneaking it into casseroles. We have actual casserole recipes from the Great Depression time or around the war times that uses oatmeal, cooked oatmeal, as a base for the casserole. Now there's one that has been in our family for many years. It's my grandmother's Mock Chicken Loaf. The original recipe calls for cooked oatmeal, cottage cheese, onions, and broken cracker crumbs, and that pretty much different seasonings makes up the casserole. I have adapted that recipe and made it with tofu, and it works just as well in my opinion. I like it just fine. So there are many different casseroles that you can sneak oatmeal into. If you eat meatloaf, you can put it in there and add a little fiber. Nobody will probably know the difference. You can find that Mock Chicken Loaf recipe around last Thanksgiving. I shared how to make it and I demonstrated how to make it. You can also find it on my blog, www.ridgehavenhomestead.com. And it's under Grandma's Mock Chicken Loaf. The last way that I want to share with you is similar to the loaves, and that is making your oatmeal into patties. You can use quite a bit of leftover oatmeal as the base for patties and burgers. I like to add smashed beans or smashed tofu or any kind of protein like that can pair with the oatmeal and the grains. I like to add chopped nuts or seeds, some yeast flakes, or maybe some soy sauce, something to flavor it. A hearty amount of flavorings like Italian seasoning or cumin, just depending on what kind of flavoring you're looking for. You can make really, really good homemade patties. We eat meatless, and so that's what I'm focusing on, and sometimes I'll use like a vegan cheese to add to it. Because the oatmeal is so sticky, it binds that all together and it makes a really good patty. I'm probably going to be doing that with some of my leftover oatmeal soon. Now, I got this many years ago. It's just a burger maker. You just fill this up and it smashes it out, so it makes it easy to make a pretty hefty size burger. But you can also use a canning rim with saran wrap in it, and you can spray it or oil it and it will release, and you can make uniform patty shapes with that as well. You can either use the wide or the narrow, whichever one you like. Sometimes I've used both depending on what kind of patties and how big I want them. So my favorite way to make patties or burgers, and I rarely use a recipe for this, I have the cooked oatmeal. I put, let's just say I have 2 cups leftover oatmeal, then I might put 2 cups of smashed beans, whatever flavor I'm trying to catch. So sometimes it might be smashed lima beans or Great Northerns, garbanzos, pinto beans. Black beans make a great burger. You can make like a southwestern burger. You can add chopped peppers, onions, cumin, and it really is quite delicious. So I'm probably going to be using my leftover oatmeal to make patties, so that way I can make burgers for my kids and my husband's lunches, and that will be a great way to use the leftover oatmeal. So let me know what I've missed, because there's so many ways you can be creative with using leftovers and I've just hit 5. Tell me, in your house, is it kind of similar? Do you end up with leftovers that you don't quite know what to do with? If you would share your creative ideas, then I'm sure that would help me, and I'm hoping that these creative ideas for using leftover oatmeal has helped you. And so now let's hop to it. Let's make something with this oatmeal so that we cannot be wasting it. And in a subsequent video, I will share how I'm making the patties that I'm making today. Be on the lookout for that. And until next time, stay safe, be well, and may God bless you. Happy cooking, whatever you decide to do.